Now, from Wish TV, your local news source, this is All Indiana Politics.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome to another edition of All Indiana Politics. I'm Phil Sanchez. How can the leading Republican candidates for governor claim to be outsiders? That question got some interesting responses during our live debate here on Wish TV this week. It brought together Curtis Hill, Brad Chambers, Suzanne Crouch, Eric Doden, and Mike Braun. Here's how that portion went. A key component of many Republican campaigns over the past 8 years has been being an outsider. In fact, we've heard it a number of times during this campaign, but on stage right now, we have a sitting lieutenant governor, a sitting United States senator, a former state attorney general, and two people who have held the highest job in state government for attracting new businesses and jobs. With that said, and Ms. Crouch, we'll start with you here. How can anyone in this primary claim to be an outsider?
I don't know. But you know, I'm proud of my public service. And I am the only one that has the political courage to take on axing the tax, to making priority those Hoosiers that struggle with mental illness and addiction as part of my campaign and part of my administration as governor. And as governor, I also have, lieutenant governor, I have a track record. I led the fight to expand broadband throughout Indiana. I protected our farmland and our military sites. I stood up and fought FSSA on behalf of parents of severely disabled children. And then I voted for the largest property tax cut in our state's history and co-founded the Indiana Mental Health Roundtable to be able to bring help to those Hoosiers that are struggling with mental illness and addiction. I want to be a voice for you, the listeners, the viewers out there. I want to be the person that stands up for you to fight to eliminate the income tax, to fight the drug cartels and their Chinese allies, and then to be sure to help those that struggle with mental illness and addiction.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mr. Doden, the claim of an outsider, how do you define it?
Well, I'm not really focused on being an outsider. I mean, I'm focused on leadership and a bold vision, and that's what we've been pitching from day one. You know, I had the opportunity and the privilege to serve the state of Indiana, and during that time was the architect of regional cities. The first time in our history that we had put money into the regions, allowing each 3 regions to really work with each other and grow. And we put $126 million into the regions, and the private sector did $1.25 billion of deals in 1 year. Now we're trying to do something that's never been done in history. We have a plan for our small towns. For 50 years, we have ignored our small towns and forgotten them. And we have a plan to put 10% of our economic development budget into our small towns and transform them all over the state of Indiana. We've gone further and said we're the first county in the country to come up with a zero-cost adoption plan that would help the 13,000 kids in foster care experience a loving home. This kind of vision and leadership is what we're focused on.
So just to be clear, Mr. Doden, you don't consider yourself an outsider?
I'm focused on being a leader and a visionary.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Mr. Braun, 60 seconds to you.
So I think an outsider ought to be defined by what you've done for most of your life. I bucked the trend from the day I got out of school and moved back to my hometown. I've been a scrappy entrepreneur for 37 years. Been the loudest voice in the U.S. Senate about fiscal integrity, so you can do it in many different ways. And it's going to boil down to who is really going to shake the system up. And I think that should be clear by what you've done methodically over a long period of time. And I cut my teeth in the real world. In the time I've spent in government, it's been railing against it. And the ultimate outsider in politics, you know who I'm talking about, endorse me, not anyone else on this stage. He is the guy that broke the system at the federal level, and now the system's trying to take him out. So if you want to know who the outsider is, that's very clear, and I represent that here.
So just to be clear, you're talking about the former President Donald Trump.
To be clear, yes.
Okay, Mr. Braun, thank you very much. Mr. Hill, 60 seconds.
Well, certainly the Indianapolis establishment has wanted me to be the outsider for my entire career, but they're going to have to work a little harder at that. This is actually quite interesting because what I've coined is a new phrase, the inside outsider, because that's what we have, these folks who claim to be outsiders, but they're so deeply rooted When you're talking about the Secretary of Commerce, is there a higher job, more influential job, more inside job? I don't think so. Mike Braun says he's an outsider because he worked for 37 years. No, you're not, Mike. You've been in the system long enough. It doesn't make you an outsider. You know, he's in the Senate. Does it make him an outsider to have a global warming committee that has Lisa Murkowski and Sue Collins, the two most liberal Republicans on that committee, in the United States Senate on his committee? Okay. Is that an outsider? I don't think so.
Mr. Hill, thank you. Mr. Braun, I'll let you respond to that in a moment. I'll let you respond. Mr. Chambers, 60 seconds, though, on that.
It's a simple definition. Who's been on the ballot the most? I've never been on a ballot until 30 days ago. Mr. Braun has been on the ballot at least 5 times, okay? Everybody else has been on a ballot multiple times. Listen, I respect public service. My point of view is that someone needs to be the CEO of a state, and coming from outside in, like Mitch Daniels in 2005, has clear view. When you're in the system and you have multiple times that you're on the ballot, you're not an outsider. You're just not, Mike. I'm sorry. Listen, I was asked to serve by Governor Holcomb. I agreed to 2 years for $1 a year and broke every record in state history in economic development. That's called service. We built a great team. We brought $51 billion to every corner of the state, and we touched 92 counties with community investments through the READY program. 92, not just 3. Not just 3, Eric. 92 counties. We've already done what you're talking about. That's called service. That's called being an outsider.
Okay. Mr. Chambers, thank you very much. I'll get to you in a second. Mr. Doden, Mr. Braun, your name was invoked. 30 seconds.
So first of all, Curtis has never signed the front side of a paycheck. He may have run a lemonade stand years ago, but he's been in government. He can tell me what he's done. I can tell you, if you haven't done that, you have no reason to want to run the biggest business in our state, which is our state government. And when it comes to what 2 people involved in economic development have done, one has got the LEAP project as his crowning piece of jewel, and this guy had ethics violations when he did run the economic development department. So you got to have a little experience, or you get into pickles like that.
I did not run a lemonade stand. What I have is executive leadership experience. I ran the Attorney General's office, an office that had nearly 400 people. Mike has been a legislator. Mike has been a legislator in the State House. He's been a legislator in the United States Senate. That is different than governmental executive leadership. Running the government requires you to be able to make executive decisions on a regular basis. We don't have that in Mike Braun.
And if you missed the debate or you'd like to see it, we've posted it online at wishtv.com. Really easy. Scan the QR code on your screen. That will take you to the As Seen On section of our website. You can find the full debate posted there. Coming up, Congresswoman Victoria Spriggs explains her last-minute decision to run for another term. Welcome back. Congresswoman Victoria Spriggs says that she has unfinished business in Washington. Spriggs announced that she would run for another term just before the filing deadline in February. Our Garrett Bergquist asked her about her decision to run and her priorities if voters decide to keep her.
Let's bring in Congresswoman Victoria Spriggs. Congresswoman, welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So you went back and forth a couple times on whether or not you would run for another term. Why did you ultimately decide to run for another term after all?
Listen, I never wanted to be a lifelong politician. I truly believe it's a tour of duty. You have to do your service and then live the laws you legislated, and that's how it meant to be. And I felt, the DC is crazy, and I felt, let me just concentrate on a few issues to deliver this Congress and then take time off and get some sanity back at home and spend time with my high school kids. And a lot of things that I worked very hard, unfortunately, didn't happen this year. Unfortunately, the other side is pretty powerful, and I do need to have strong ally. And people in my district were upset, and my colleagues, conservatives, were upset, and I felt like I need to deliver for the people. And I didn't see anyone who could win that race that actually would care about the people and fight important issues for the country. So I felt I needed to give voters a choice, and people have a choice now.
Why wait until just a few days before the filing deadline to announce, though?
It's actually a kind of time work out like that, because there are a few big issues that will happen in January, and when we were supposed to have an issue of border security and fiscal commission to deal with Russian debt, that is really one of the, they're the two biggest national security risks, and that was supposed to be in this, in our packages, which was CR at that time, and I understood if that's not happening in our January package, so the timing kind of worked out with, with how the filing deadline was, and when I saw that Republicans did fold it and we were not able, to deliver on these big issues, I felt I cannot go back and tell people that care about, delivering people in my district that I'm going to abandon them. So the timing, that's how it worked out. And that's why I said, no, I need to try to have a better people, hopefully next Congress, and give a chance to some very, very important issue. We have to start governing. We're in trouble as a country.
What's your plan for immigration? Congress hasn't really gotten much of anything done on that besides some border security funding.
Listen, I think it's very, very important. We need to, listen, I am here as a legal immigrant, and it was not easy, to get documentation and to become citizens. So our system, our legal immigration system is broken, and we need to reform so that we can better serve our national interests. But we do have to start first with securing the border. This is a national security crisis and significant risks. We have a lot of very, brutal adversaries around the world try to come after us. We have cartels, that truly now in cahoots with China. Most fentanyl that they're bringing to our country, killing, thousands of Americans. This actually is produced in China. And we have to stop that. This is really killing Americans, this open border. The terrorists right now that can come through our border, and also the huge problem for welfare system. We cannot have illegal immigration to welfare. Our system is already bankrupt.
Abortion has become a pretty significant topic in this election. Would you support a nationwide abortion ban?
Listen, I am a very pro-life person. I truly believe this is, very American for us. We need to protect life of born and unborn. This issue actually became a state issue too, and you can see that. And I think at this point, I think at some point the federal government will have to reconcile, and we'll see. But right now, let states to deliberate on these issues, and some states will be, more conservative, some be more liberal. But I think in the end, we'll probably have to, to find some common ground and protect life of an unborn, because it's a very, very important issue, and it's always been an important issue for me.
What's one thing that we haven't discussed you have not been able to accomplish and would like to if elected to another term?
It's health care. I'll be honest with you. People talk about health care, but if we don't fix health care, it's 1/3 of our debt. 1 of 6 Hoosiers are in debt collections, because of medical debts. We have now hyperinflation of price, and we have no competition for value. And it's really access to health care is getting worse and worse for many Americans. And health care is really, it's a health and productivity, but it's really an issue that can change people's lives. So I force transparency legislation, and I'm telling you, there is no lobby for the people, except if Congress wants to be, and Congress hasn't been very good at that because there's so much money.
Well, coming up, Indiana's Best Political Team looks back at the governor's debate and a high-profile campaign stop. Welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome in 2 members of Indiana's Best Political Team, Republican Tom John and Democrat Kip Tu. Let's begin with the Republican governor candidates debate we aired live right here on Wish TV on Wednesday. Tom, Mike Braun is the front runner, but with a lot of voters still undecided. Will his performance that night solidify his lead?
I don't think it will. I think he struggled quite a bit. I think he struggles to answer the criticisms on things like Black Lives Matter and qualified immunity, and frankly didn't show very well. I thought Eric Doden really came out as the strong candidate in the debate, but I thought there were great moments from both Brad Chambers, Curtis Hill, and Suzanne Crouch too.
Kip, what were some of the key takeaways for you?
Well, I think for me, it won't surprise you, I think Jennifer McCormick won the debate by not being up there with all the extremists. I don't think Indiana is as extreme as how those people are playing to win their Republican primary. For example, Indiana is a pro-choice state and always has been a pro-choice state. Number two, there's large majorities that want cannabis legalization, and none of the people up there were ready to jump on board with something like that. So I think that Jennifer McCormick won the debate. Of the people on stage, I'm going to agree with Tom. I think Eric Doden probably did the best job on stage. I would say that those things don't matter that much. No offense to you, but unfortunately not enough people watch it to make decisions, and it gets played out in the advertising, and that's where the decision gets made. And right now, I think Braun still has the advantage.
Did any of the other candidates, Kip, have any breakout moments in your opinion? I know you said Doden, but aside from him?
I would say Brad Chambers showed some passion about the thing he's really good at. You could tell he cared a lot about that, and that was good for him to do. Obviously, Suzanne Crouch is running on axe the tax. I don't think Indiana is ready to axe the tax, and I don't think it's going to work. But, you know, I'm also not the best judge of Republican primary.
Did that resonate, Tom? Go ahead.
So what did you ask? Sorry.
So did the axe the tax moment, did that resonate at all, you think? I know it's been a big part of her campaign.
I mean, it garnered applause. I do think that, frankly, all of the other candidates up there brought up the very good reasons for why it's really just not realistic to do it, and it's very gimmicky. And I think at the end of the day, Hoosier voters have a lot of common sense. And when they look at it, they may say, well, that sounds great, but I don't think I want somebody who just tells me what I want. I want to hear what they actually need.
Right. Speaking of the governor's race, Donald Trump Jr. stumped for Braun and for Jim Banks at a rally on Tuesday. His father, of course, the former president, has endorsed Braun for governor and Banks for the U.S. Senate. Tom, we still have a lot of undecided voters in the Republican primary for governor, as you know. Will the sight of the Trump family campaigning for Braun move them into Braun's camp?
Well, I think obviously he's relying on the Trump endorsement, and there's a certain segment of the Republican primary that's going to be very helpful with. But when you look at a lot of the undecided voters, a lot of them are women, and those don't necessarily trend well to the Trump side. And so I don't know that these outreaches are going to actually help very much with the undecided voters. I think they're solidifying his base. And I think a lot of the voters who are out there, the women that are out there, are looking for somebody with a little different approach than what you see from Donald Trump or, frankly, Mike Braun.
That being said, Kip, how does Trump's support for those candidates affect Democrats' campaign strategy?
Well, you know, to paraphrase Lloyd Benson, I've met Donald Trump. Donald Trump Jr. is no Donald Trump. But Trump himself helps Mike Braun in a primary campaign in Indiana at this moment. I don't think that anybody can doubt that. But Trump has been underperforming in places. And so I think, you know, I'm kind of hoping the magic's about to run out on him, but I haven't seen any evidence of it in Indiana yet. But we shall see. If Eric Doden can catch him, then it's a new day.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Hey, before we go, the longtime leader of Indiana's second largest city has passed away. Fort Wayne Mayor Tom Henry died Thursday from a medical emergency related to stomach cancer. He had just been elected to his 5th term in November. Kip, your thoughts on that and his legacy?
Well, he's obviously one of the greatest mayors in the city of Fort Wayne. That's where I was born and raised. And Tom Henry is going to be a legend. It's a terribly sad day for all of us Democrats. He was a great leader, a great human. His wife just passed away about 6 weeks ago as well. She was battling cancer for a couple of years. I think he was probably keeping his symptoms hidden or not paying attention to him because he was caring for his wife. It's just a terribly, terribly sad day.
Just 72 years old, too. Tom, your thoughts, 10 seconds.
No, absolutely. I mean, he was a good man, and you look no further than how long he served, that his people loved him, and it was a Republican city he led. So, I mean, credit to him, and it's a sad loss to the state.
Thoughts with his family, no doubt.
One point of privilege.
Yeah.
Go Oilers.
There you go. Okay, on a lighter note, right? Gentlemen, good to see you. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you. We'll be right back. And thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics this week. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30. You can also find our brand new All Indiana Politics podcast. It's part of the All Indiana Podcast Network at wishtv.com. Have a great rest of your weekend.